Hello everyone, it is I, Mark S.W. Welcome back to my channel and welcome to the second video of the Thomas the Tank Engine anniversary project that I'm working on. Just a quick reminder, this is in honour of the 40th anniversary of the TV series and the 80th anniversary of the book series. What I've done is I've chosen 20 episodes from the TV series that are not in the books, and I've rewritten them in a way where they could appear in the books. So we have 5 books in total, each with 4 chapters. So I did the first book last month, so now we're going to do the second book, which is Emily the Stirling engine. Emily is a very popular engine in the TV series, but of course she doesn't have her own book. So this is what would her book look like, you could say. Before we begin, do please subscribe to my channel if you're new and hit the notification bell. And if you're one of those YouTubers who makes Thomas stories and you'd like to adapt these stories into something more visual, then you're more than welcome to, but please provide your own narration. Enjoy. Thomas, Emily and the Snowplough. Emily is one of the new engines on the Fat Controller's railway. She is a mixed traffic engine, so she can pull both coaches and trucks, although she prefers coaches. Whatever work she's given, she always tries to do a grand job. Sometimes Emily thinks that the other engines can also do a grand job, so she tries to help by telling them what they're doing wrong. If she saw a passenger train going by, she would say, "Slow down, you're going too fast and bumping your passengers." When she saw another engine talking to friends, she would say, "Stop gossiping, you're working and they will make you late." This sometimes made the other engines cross. "It's like Duck all over again," grumbled Gordon, "always trying to do things the right way." "I do things the Great Western way," replied Duck. "That doesn't always mean it's the right way. At least I'm not impatient like Emily." "He's got a point," agreed Edward. "When I passed Emily at the crossing yesterday, she kept telling me to hurry up." "Well, I think she's a bossy boiler," huffed Thomas, "and I'm not going to listen to her if she's going to keep bossing me around." "Are you sure that's a good idea?" asked Duck. But Thomas didn't answer. He just smiled, thinking he had a good plan. It was the middle of winter, and the first drops of snow had sprinkled all over the island. The Fat Controller went to see the engines at Tidmouth Sheds. Some of them had already left for their early morning jobs. "I have an updated weather report," he announced. "Heavy snow is on the way this afternoon. You must all have snowplows fitted. Please tell the other engines that I want them to wear them as well." While Emily was getting her snowplow fitted, she was pleased. "Now I can help even more," she thought. As she puffed along the line with her passenger train, she met Thomas at the junction. "I bet she's going to boss me again," Thomas muttered. "We'll see about that." "Thomas," called Emily, "you need to go and get your snowplow." But Thomas ignored Emily and just looked at his passengers. "Peep, peep," he whistled. "Get in quickly, please." "You need to go and get your snowplow," whistled Emily. "Bother snowplow," Thomas answered back. "I'm a guaranteed connection. Besides, the weather is just fine." And as he puffed away, Emily could hear Annie and Clarabelle singing, "Bossy boiler, bossy boiler." "He'll be in serious trouble," said Emily to herself. Thomas soon finished his journey and was taking on water at the station near the harbour. He then noticed that the sky was getting darker. He was just thinking about his snowplow when the inspector came up to him. "I have an important job for you, Thomas," he said. "The coal bunkers at Crosby Station are empty. You need to take these coal trucks to them. Don't worry, Daisy will take your passengers for the return journey." "Come on, Thomas," said his driver. "If we hurry, we might be able to deliver the coal and go back for your snowplow before it starts snowing." but they weren't. As soon as Thomas joined the main line, heavy snowdrops fell from the sky. Thomas had to go slowly to avoid slipping on the icy rails. By the time he reached Crosby, he could hardly see the rails. He backed the coal trucks onto the siding with the bunkers. "We'll never make it back to Farquhar now," said his driver. "We'll just have to wait for another engine to come and help us." Thomas's driver and fireman went to have a hot chocolate at the station's tea rooms, while Thomas stayed in the siding. As the snow started to pile up around him, he became cold and miserable. A couple of hours later, he heard an engine's whistle. Thomas was delighted, until he found out who his rescuer was. "I told you to get your snowplough fitted," said Emily crossly, "and now look what's happened to you." Thomas was still annoyed with Emily. "You should apologize for bossing me around," he said. "I am sorry," replied Emily. "Sorry you didn't listen to me." Emily pulled Thomas back to the junction. Percy was already there. He had brought Thomas's snowplough on a flat truck. The Fat Controller was also waiting for them. "Here is your snowplough, Thomas," he said. "I'm pleased with your coal delivery, but in future you must learn to listen." Emily now felt bad for Thomas. "I'm sorry, sir," she said. "It's my fault. I forgot to tell Thomas that it was you who wanted him to wear his snowplough." "You mean I have two engines who don't listen? Well, I never," boomed the Fat Controller. "Thomas, get your snowplough fixed on at once." And with that, the Fat Controller turned on his heels and walked sternly away. Emily's new route. It was springtime. The Fat Controller had arranged some new routes for the engines to work on. One of them was the flour route, which started at the mill on Edward's branch line and terminated at Knapford Station. Emily was given this route. At first she thought it would be fun to deliver flour, but the troublesome trucks were making it difficult for her. As the weeks went by, they played all sorts of tricks on Emily. Sometimes they weren't coupled up properly, and sometimes they would cry, "Hold back!" This would make Emily late. One day, the Fat Controller warned her that if she was late again, James would do her route and she would do his. When James heard the news, he was feeling relieved. "Good," he said. "I don't like my route." He had been given the Castle route. He had to take holidaymakers to Peel Godward Castle along the branch line that connects to the mountain railway. "Why don't you like going to the castle?" asked Emily. "Loose rocks from the mountain can fall onto the line and bash your buffers," James explained. "And if you stay on the line for too long, you might see the Harwin Lake Monster." "What's the Harwin Lake Monster?" "Nobody knows," said James mysteriously. "Some kind of strange animal that lives in Harwin Lake." The thought of the lake monster made Emily shiver from funnel to footplate. "I've got to do well today," she said to herself the next morning. "I don't want to get a route with bashed buffers and a monster." As she backed down to her train, she could hear the truck singing, off we go, mustn't be late, mustn't be late. "Be quiet," she snapped. As soon as everything was ready, she started her journey, but neither she or her driver and fireman realized that not all the trucks were coupled up properly, and they left half the flour behind. When they reached Knapford Station, they realized what had happened and had to go back to the mill to collect the rest of the trucks. "Oh no," groaned Emily. "I'm sure to get the castle route now." When she arrived back at the mill, the trucks laughed and laughed. "Emily the late engine, Emily the late engine," they teased. This made Emily so cross that she gave the trucks a big bump, too hard and too fast. They crashed into the siding and one of the loads burst open. Poor Emily was covered in white plain flour. It took a while to clear the mess, and when Emily delivered the rest of the flour, it was very late. "I guess that settles it then," said the Fat Controller, looking at the floured mess Emily was in. "You will do the castle run tomorrow. You'll be cleaned first thing in the morning. Perhaps the state you're now in will teach you to be more careful with trucks." The next morning, Emily's driver and fireman arrived early to clean the flour off Emily. As soon as she was steamed up, she left the sheds to pick up her coaches. She was feeling miserable and upset. "Come on, old girl," said her driver. "It might not be that bad." But Emily wasn't sure. When she arrived at the station, she saw all the happy holidaymakers. "They're all looking forward to visiting the castle," she said to herself. "I mustn't let them down." Soon Emily was puffing through the valleys and hills on her new route. At first, things were going well. "I bet it won't last," Emily thought. When suddenly she was interrupted by a loud bang, and she felt her axles tingle. "That was a warning detonator," said her driver. "There must be trouble ahead. We'd better slow down." And he was right to. Up ahead, Emily could see that the line was blocked by rocks and stones. Workmen were already at work clearing the line. As Emily came to a stop, she also noticed the murky waters of the lake. "That's where the monster's meant to be," she said nervously. "I knew I wouldn't like this route." Just then, she saw black shapes in the lake, bobbing up and down. "It's the monster!" Emily cried. She was so frightened, her boiler quivered and her valves rattled. "Steady, girl, steady!" checked her driver. Emily wanted to steam away, but then she thought about her passengers. "No," she said bravely. "I have to get them to the castle, no matter what." At last the water settled, and Emily could see what the shapes were. A family of seals. She was delighted. Even the passengers were excited to see the seals. Eventually the line was cleared, and Emily continued her journey past the mountains and through the countryside. When she arrived at the castle, she felt a sense of relief and comfort. "You were right," she said to her driver. "This route is a nice route after all." Emily knows best. As the weeks went by, Emily enjoyed her visit to the castle. She loved to listen to the stories about the kings, queens, lords and ladies who used to live there. "I'd love to be a queen," she would say to herself. "Queens are in charge and they tell people how to do things properly." One day, she took some visitors to the castle as usual. Her next train was not for another 2 hours, so she decided to visit the shunting yard near the station. Toby and Percy were working there. The Fat Controller had asked them to shunt trucks full of stones from a previous landslide. The stone was good quality, and he didn't want to waste it. "We can use the stones for building work," he told the engines. "Take them to Cronk Station where they can be unloaded." When Emily arrived at the yards, the 2 engines were waiting for their trucks to be coupled up. Percy could see the castle on top of the hill. "I've never worked near the castle before," he said. "It must be great visiting it." "It is," said Emily. "One day I would love to be a queen of a castle, and you could be my loyal and faithful subject." Toby thought Emily was just being silly. "There's more to being a queen than telling people what to do," he said wisely. "You have to be very clever and know the right thing to do." "I always know what to do," huffed Emily. "Not all the time," muttered Toby. Emily felt insulted, but before she could say anything, Toby's trucks were all coupled up and he was ready to go. He could see that Percy was slightly worried about his load. "Don't worry, Percy," he said. "If you're finding it difficult, wait for me to return and I'll help you." And he puffed slowly away. When Percy was ready, he puffed and pushed as hard as he could, but the trucks hardly moved at all. Hold back, they giggled. Get moving, ordered Percy. But it was no good. As Emily watched Percy, she thought to herself, if I want to be a queen, I need to tell Percy what to do. Then I'll show Toby that I do know best. She steamed up to Percy, who was about to give up. "Percy," she whistled, "I know what's best. I'll tell you what to do. Take your trucks along my track. It's faster and much smoother, and they won't complain. Toby will be very pleased when he sees how well you've managed all by yourself." At first, Percy was unsure. He knew that Toby knew more about trucks than Emily. But then again, it would be great to show Toby that he did it all by himself. "I'll do as you say, Queen Emily," he peeped. A workman changed the points, and with a big whoosh of steam, Percy pushed the troublesome trucks onto Emily's track. As Emily puffed back up the hill to collect her passengers, she was feeling very pleased with herself. But when she got back to the castle station, she heard a loud crashing sound in the distance. "Oh no," she grumbled, "not another landslide." But she soon found out that it wasn't. As Emily puffed along the line with her coaches, she saw a workman waving a red flag. Behind him, she saw what had happened. Percy's trucks had run into Donald, who was waiting on the track. No one was hurt, but Percy was derailed, the loads of stone went everywhere, and one of the trucks had knocked over a telephone pole. "Percy," said Donald crossly, "you're not supposed to be on this track." Emily knew it was all her fault, but before she could apologize, there was a loud screeching sound. Luckily, Toby had stopped just in time. "Bless my bell," he cried. "What an awful mess." Emily told Toby what had happened and then said, "You were right. I can't be a queen. I don't know what's best and I don't know what to do." "Well, I do," said Toby calmly. "Go back to the station and get the breakdown crane. I'll go back to Abbey Station and tell them what's happened." So Emily left her coaches at the station, picked up the crane and some workmen, and took them to the crash site. Toby brought some engineers to fix the telephone pole. Luckily, Donald wasn't too badly damaged, but poor Percy had to go to the works to be repaired. It took too long to clear the mess, so bus services were provided for the visitors. When the Fat Controller heard about the accident, he was very disappointed with Emily and told her to stay in the shed for several days. That night, Emily could hear someone whispering, "Do you remember when the Queen came to visit our railway? I bet she never caused a big mess like Queen Emily did." Emily pretended she hadn't heard. Best engine ever. While Emily stayed in the shed, a special visitor came to the railway. Her name was Rebecca, a yellow and red tender engine who lived on a small railway in the southwest coast of England. Rebecca was so kind and enthusiastic, she quickly became friends with the other engines. Even Emily grew fond of her. But she was still upset about her accident with the flour trucks and giving Percy bad advice. When she told Rebecca about this, she tried to cheer Emily up. "We all make mistakes," she said. "I used to be clumsy, so I made loads of mistakes. But my controller says that the important thing to do is to learn from your mistakes." Emily thought about this for a long time. A few days later, the Fat Controller came to see her. "I'm really sorry, sir," she began. "I promise I'll try and be a better engine." "I know you mean well," said the Fat Controller, but you must understand that my engines have more experience than you, especially when it comes to trucks." Emily looked at her buffers, feeling ashamed. "Don't worry," the Fat Controller went on. "I think I know how to help you. Perhaps pulling the slow goods for the next few weeks might help you learn how to be more patient and how to handle trucks. Donald and Douglas have agreed to help you, and you can start right now by doing some shunting." And so it was arranged. The twins taught Emily every trick they knew about how to handle trucks. Emily was so amazed she had to ask, "You don't really like them, do you?" "Ugh, it's all work, lass," remarked Donald. "Aye, if we didn't do it, no one would," added Douglas. The secret was that the trucks hadn't forgotten the time when Douglas had crushed a spiteful brake van. Of course, this was an accident, but no one told the trucks this, and they still believed that Douglas did it on purpose. "Keep on the right side of those two," they would say to each other whenever they saw the twins approaching. For the first few days of pulling the slow goods, Donald and Douglas took it in turns to be Emily's double-header or back engine. After a week, she said that she was ready to do it all by herself. She stopped at all the right stations, collected the right trucks, and let other engines go first with their passenger and goods trains. "I'm learning patience," she told Rebecca one day, "but if only I could learn it quicker." Rebecca laughed. "You're doing a grand job," she said. "Keep it up and you'll be the best engine on the railway." "Well, to be honest," said Emily modestly, "I think you're the best engine. You've been wonderful ever since you've arrived here." "You're too kind," said Rebecca, "but I still think you're the best engine ever." The two engines became good friends, and they even got to work together on the same jobs. When the holiday season was nearly over, the castle had plans to redecorate and renovate, so the engines took building equipment and supplies to the castle. One morning, when Emily dropped off her trucks, she was about to leave when she noticed several workmen crowded around Rebecca. "Is something wrong?" she asked. "It's all right," Rebecca reassured. "It's just my driver thought he heard something squeak as we were climbing the hill." "Everything seems to be okay, Rebecca," said her driver at last, "but I suggest that we take it slowly on our journey down the hill. The castle hill is not as steep as Gordon's Hill, but it can be tricky to climb and dangerous if there was a breakaway." Emily was halfway down the hill when suddenly she heard a whistle and a cry. "Help! Help!" yelled Rebecca. "My brakes have failed! I can't stop!" "Hurrah! Hurrah!" cried the trucks, who saw this as an opportunity. Emily tried to go faster to get out of the way, but it was not fast enough. "Look out, Emily!" cried Rebecca, as she caught up with Emily with a bump. "On, on!" yelled the trucks. "I have to slow her down!" cried Emily. Her driver applied the brakes as hard as he could. Although the trucks were empty, they were still pushing. "Don't worry, Rebecca," called Emily. "I've got you." Sparks flew from Emily's wheels. The screeching sound of her brakes was deafening. The two engines raced down the hill and through the tunnel. They were getting slower and slower until they finally stopped just before they reached the sharp bend. Emily let out a whoosh of relief. "I've done it! I've done it!" she panted. "Thank you, Emily," said a relieved Rebecca. "You're my hero." The two engines were soon coupled up properly, and Emily pulled Rebecca to the next station where they could leave the trucks on a siding. Then they went to the workstation so that Rebecca could have her brakes repaired. Emily was surprised to see the Fat Controller and Rebecca's owner waiting for them. "We heard what happened, and I'm very grateful and proud of you, Emily," said the owner. "So am I," added the Fat Controller. "Now that you have redeemed yourself, not only will you be allowed to pull passenger trains again, but you shall also receive a new coat of paint. And what number would you like painted on your tender?" Emily was so delighted, her boiler bubbled. "Thank you, sir. Number 12, please," she said. As soon as Rebecca was repaired, it was time for her and her owner to go home. Emily, with her newly painted number, arrived in time to see them off, and she joined in with Donald and Douglas as they sang "Will You No Come Back Again." "Thank you for inviting me," said Rebecca as she puffed slowly out of the station. "And do take care of Emily, the best engine ever." And with that, everyone cheered and whistled until Rebecca was out of sight. Thanks for watching this video, guys. I hope you enjoyed the stories. If you did, then do give this video a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel and hit the bell icon, and you can follow me on my social sites. I'll see you next time. Over and out.